Eddie Canistracci here. Yeah, this is not going to be one of my more upbeat videos because sadly, the great Ace Frehley is no longer with us. News of his passing happened just a couple days ago, and for a day I was just processing it. Subsequent day, I posted about it on social media. I already did my eulogy for Ace Frehley on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. I posted my thoughts on Ace Frehley, why he meant a lot to me as both an entertainer and personality, songwriter, guitarist, human being. And I'm not going to do all that now because this is a ranking video, and I thought people are going to do their tributes to Ace. We're going to see a lot of tributes online, especially amongst all the Kiss fans out there, the Kiss fans on the internet. And I thought, you know what? A lot of people are going to be getting into Ace Frehley now, because sadly, but also I think it's a good thing, sadly and appropriately, people dive into artists' discography sometimes when things like this happen. Perhaps maybe they just had one or two Ace albums, but now, because of this, they're going to probably be diving a little deeper, which is great. He doesn't have that many solo albums. He wasn't the most productive guy, but he had a little bit of a burst there in the later phase of his career where he was suddenly getting productive, and we'll talk about that as we talk about the albums. But essentially, I thought, hey, people are going to be wanting to know about Ace Frehley's solo albums, his output after Kiss, and I thought this is an opportunity to do that, perhaps fill a vacuum if there haven't been a lot of videos like this about Ace's solo albums. It's a good time too because I've been listening to a lot of Ace Frehley, not just in Kiss, but also his solo career, and that also includes Frehley's Comet. Yes, I will be including Frehley's Comet, which is technically a band, but more or less everyone considers that Ace Frehley's solo career or an extension of his solo career. So I will be including Frehley's Comet along with albums that are credited just as Ace Frehley solo albums, including the 78 solo album, yes, which is officially a Kiss album. Yes, those 78 solo albums are officially Kiss albums, and they have the Kiss logo, and they're wearing the Kiss makeup and all that, but they were also true solo albums. Ace Frehley did record that album without help from the other members, and it really was his first solo album. Its official connection to Kiss aside. So I will be including that in this Rankorama as well. So I'll be including the 78 solo album, Frehley's Comet, and everything else that came afterwards from Ace Frehley, who is my favorite member of Kiss. That's why I'm a little down, because he's my favorite member of Kiss, one of my favorite rock stars of all time, and I think it'll be cathartic. It'll be cathartic for me and cathartic for some of you out there. Let's just get into it, because ultimately that's what we're left with. We're left with the music. We're going to get into this now. Okay, we're getting into the Ace-orama. Okay, there is one album on this list that is really, really bad. It's so bad, I was somewhat resistant to do this Ace-orama because of this album, because I thought, well, you know, Ace Frehley, he just died. He just died, and this is going to be my tribute, trashing an album of his. Well, it's all right, because I'm going to say a lot of great things about the other albums. But, you know, I got to be honest. Yes, at number 10, this is actually very appropriate, actually, that this is number 10, because 10's in the title. Okay, number 10, 10,000 Volts. Yes, by no stretch of the imagination is this a good album. In fact, this album is so bad, it doesn't even have a Wikipedia page. Yeah, I went through his discography. This one's the only one that's like in black. There's no link, which is probably a good thing. They don't want people hearing this album. It's really bad. Unfortunately, it was Ace's last album, so this is how he went out. You know, let's address the elephant in the room. The last couple years have been shaky for Ace in terms of performances, in terms of his public appearances, and yeah, obviously he was having some health issues or maybe some other issues behind the scenes, and 10,000 Volts definitely sounds like it was part of the problem. Like you could hear, like as soon as I started hearing some of these songs, I was like, there's something off. There's something wrong with Ace, because this is not good stuff. And yes, I was not alone. A lot of fans did not like this album. You know, few were softer with their criticisms than others, but yes, this album, it's horrible. It actually has, I would say, not only the worst song that Ace Frehley ever recorded, Cherry Medicine. Cherry Medicine is the song. I would say it's one of the worst songs of all time, period. It's just a horrible song. It's a horribly written, horribly performed, horribly produced. It's just horrible. And I mean, just listen to the title, Cherry Medicine. Oh my God, it's horrible. And the title track's kind of passable. It's the second best song on the album. The only song that's actually good is a good rocker called Fighting for Life. Fighting for Life's a good hard rocker. I like that song. But yeah, this album's not that good. In fact, I did not own this album. This was the only one on the list I did not own, but because Ace died and because I wanted to be thorough with this Ace-orama, this morning I bought this album. Yeah, I finally bought this album and I listened to it out of respect and just to be a completist. Like now I know now that there's a definitive ending here, unfortunately, I know it is now the last album. I now have the discography, the entire Ace Frehley discography. So I needed to get this album. I needed to get it. And I gave it a fair shake. And believe me, if there was ever a chance this album had, a couple days after Ace passes, believe me, I wanted to love this album, but no, it's horrible. It's horrible. And the lyrics are all corny lyrics about how this woman's changing his life and how happy she's making him. And that's not what we want to hear from Ace. We want to hear Ace being pissed off and not happy about the woman in his life. You know, it's great. I'm happy that Ace found someone towards the end of his life that made him happy. But regardless, this is not what I wanted from Ace, but you know, it's there. It has one good song on it. One of these albums had to be the worst, so there you go. That's the job of 10,000 Volts. Its job is to be the worst Ace Frehley album ever. Number 9. Okay, this album I wouldn't say is bad, but it's like on the borderline. It's on the borderline between good and bad and has a couple good songs, and that is Anomaly. All right, Anomaly. This was a little bit of a comeback album for him. He hadn't recorded in a while, and this kind of launched, I would say, his like third phase of his career, like the third phase, which ultimately ended up being a pretty prolific period for him. He actually releases the majority of these albums that are on this list are from this third phase period, mid-O's to mid-teens. Like, you know, that's where Ace just suddenly started putting out a lot of material. He was clean and sober. It was suddenly about the career again and making music again. Led to a lot of good stuff. But Anomaly is kind of a shaky start. Not only does it have the worst album cover of Ace Frehley's career and most people's career. I mean, that's just one of the worst album covers ever. This is not one I listened to a lot, but I did listen to it again today. And, you know, Foxy and Free and Outer Space are good enough hard rockers. Got that Ace sound. Love Pain in the Neck. Pain in the Neck is easily my favorite song on this album. That's a great, meaty, kind of sardonic with bite rocker. A little Nirvana-esque in places. Very catchy and hooky, but dark at the same time. Calls back kind of like Snowblind and stuff like that. I love Pain in the Neck. That's a great song. A little progressive for Ace, actually, this album. He tries different stuff, you know, Genghis Khan, Space Bear. I really like the song Sister. That's probably my second favorite track on the album. That's a good rocker. The problem is there's these kind of touchy-feely songs that he has on this album. Change the World, A Little Below the Angels. That was like the worst Ace Frehley song before Candy Medicine made it hold its beer. And It's a Great Life. You could tell that this is obviously when he was doing like the 12 steps or whatever and found Christ and was like no longer drinking the booze or doing the drugs. And so it almost sounds like Ace has joined a cult or something. Half the songs on this album are not bad, but these touchy-feely songs, it's a good thing. He found a way to do songs like this in a more subtle, less hokey and heavy-handed way on subsequent albums. But here, yeah, this stuff it's just some lame stuff. Sorry if you love it. Sorry if it helps you with your sobriety or what have you. But ultimately, Ace Frehley is not a guy you want to be listening to learn about how you should have a nice, clean and sober life with your family. You know, that's not rock and roll. Let's see what's next on this list. Here we go. Number 8. Yes, I'm including cover albums. The album's full with cover songs. Origins Volume 2. Solid. A solid covers album. I like it. From this point on, I like everything. So there you go. Volume 2 is something he knocked out kind of real quick. You know, some of these albums during this period you could say are kind of like cash grabs, but these songs are really well played and really well performed. This is the music Ace Frehley is passionate about, and he's always been good with covers. His biggest hit is a cover. You know, he got some Zeppelin covers. I love the Mountain cover, Never in My Life. That's great. That rivals the original, actually, in my opinion. That's a great cover. Some of the stuff's a little obvious, like, you know, do we really need to hear Ace Frehley do Jumpin' Jack Flash or Lola. Like, no, we definitely didn't need that. That kind of takes it down a little bit. I like the Humble Pie cover, 30 Days in a Hole. That's featuring Robin Zander from Cheap Trick. That's a pretty good one. Don't Need We Gotta Get Out This Place. Never really liked that song, so I don't want to hear him do it. Good version of Kisses She. It's not one of his songs. Gene and Paul wrote that one. Actually went back to Wicked Lester. But still, solid. I like the production on this one. Actually, I kind of prefer the production on this one to Volume 1. But for reasons I'm about to explain, I prefer Origins Volume 1. Okay, number 7. Origins Volume 1. Origins number 1 is a little slicker sounding. It's a little brick walled, but I prefer this one because for the most part, I think the song selection's a little stronger, although there's a few covers I can live without. Like, I don't need to hear Ace do Magic Carpet Ride. I never liked that song, Magic Carpet Ride, and I don't know. I think it's a silly song for him to do. Wild Thing with Lita Ford is not as good as the original Sam Kinison masterpiece, but this is the advantage this album has over the last one, which is you get a song with Paul Stanley, them doing a cool Free cover, Free, which was a big influence on Kiss and especially Paul Stanley's songwriting. Fire and Water, great track, and it's great hearing Ace and Paul Stanley do something together again. And the fact that it's a Free song, it sounds very authentic and legit, like that's what they really were into. Plus, to me, the real big highlight about this is that you actually get to hear Ace sing lead vocals of songs he wrote in the early days of Kiss. Parasite and Cold Gin, 2 Kiss classics that, of course, all fans know Ace Frehley wrote, but he did not sing those songs. Gene Simmons sang those songs because in the early days, Ace was shy about his lead vocals, so he did not sing at that stage of the band. But these are 2 signature Ace songs as a songwriter, and they're 2 amazing songs, 2 of the best Kiss songs ever. So it's really cool to hear Ace Frehley. Ace Frehley in fine form. At this point, Ace still sounded great. His guitar playing was great, production strong. So it's great hearing these 2 songs sung by Ace. And also he does a cover, which was definitely an interesting choice that had a lot of people in the Kiss community speculating on why. He does a cover of Rock and Roll Hell from Creatures of the Night, an album that he appears on the cover of, but did not actually play on. So that was interesting that he did a song from that album, and that's a great song, and he does a great version of it. Those Kiss-related tracks make Origins Volume 1 a little stronger, in my opinion. Ultimately, I kind of would have preferred if he did like just a whole album kind of in that vein, like Ace Does Kiss, and that probably would have really annoyed Gene and Paul, which would have been fun. None of this stuff is bad on Origins. It's all solid. Some of the song selections are a little but even those selections are still well played. So they're good, solid covers albums. But ultimately, I like Ace Frehley as a songwriter. I want to hear Ace Frehley's songs. That's why even a few of these albums that are not perfect, I put ahead of the Origins albums, because they're imperfectly Ace. So now we're getting to number 6. Now, this is this album I used to say, before 10,000 Volts, I used to say this album was the worst. But I was listening to this a couple times. It did help. It did help that one of the times I listened to this album was right after listening to 10,000 Volts. So that made this album sound a lot better than it actually is. Then I listened to it a second time. It's like, okay, it's not that great. And even if it might not be as solid as the Origins albums, when it shines, it does really shine. So Second Sighting is the second album, hence the title. The second album from Frehley's Comet, which was, Ace's attempt to have like a proper, like kind of 80s melodic metal, kind of hair metal-ish, but not as full out hair metal as Kiss themselves got in the mid to late 80s. I mean, especially like compared this to like Crazy Nights. Like, no, Crazy Nights is far more of a jumping on a Bon Jovi hair metal kind of trend than any of this Frehley's Comet stuff is. Like, yeah, some of this stuff is slick, but it's more like just slickly produced AOR with a little bit of metal than the full out glam hair metal that Kiss pounced on. Even the weaker of the 2 Frehley's Comet albums blows away anything that Kiss did after Asylum, in my opinion. In fact, all the Ace Frehley songs are great. The problem is, on this one, because Ace was falling off the wagon and was having some substance abuse problems again, he was not as prolific and as engaged in this album as he was with the first Frehley's Comet album. As a result, Todd Howarth had a bigger role in this. So how you say his name? Howarth? Todd Howarth was the rhythm guitarist of Frehley's Comet, and he shared lead vocal duties with Ace. He also played some keyboards sometimes. It's not that the Todd Howarth songs are bad. They're all very well performed and produced and well written. They're like decent, like mainstream, straight down the middle AOR, kind of like stuff like Stan Bush or Survivor, kind of like shit like that. And he's got a good voice. Technically, he's a better singer than Ace, but he doesn't have the personality. It's ultimately really generic stuff. It's high quality generic stuff, but it's generic and it's really forgettable and it's very dated. It might be a cool thing if you were in an 80s movie, pumping iron during a montage, but this doesn't really feel like it's connected to Ace Frehley. The Todd Howarth songs on the other album, there was more Ace Frehley involvement, which there was in the songwriting. They had a little bit of that quality that I'm talking about, but not as much. Whereas this sounds like some generic shit and it takes down this album. However, the Ace Frehley tracks, the ones that he wrote or co-wrote and sings lead vocals on, they're all great. Insane. That's a really great song. That's a good, catchy Ace Frehley song. I love that. I don't even mind the cheesy cover, the Dancing with Danger, which is Street Heart cover. It's corny, but it's fun. It's fun in that mid-80s ZZ Top kind of way. Juvenile Delinquent, one of these great streetwise, tough, hard rock songs from Ace. Total Ace kind of song. Love that. Love the song Separate. Separate's actually my favorite song on the album. That's a real dark horse song. If you haven't listened to it in a while, listen to it. It has a real cool, dark and stripped down, I would say like Zeppelin Presence kind of sound. Like it sounds like he might have been listening to Presence that week when he wrote the song because it has that kind of stripped down, minimalistic, almost abstract interpretation of hard blues. I like the attitude and vibe and a great guitar solo. One of Ace's best and most interesting guitar solos, in my opinion. And that's high praise indeed because I'm a big fan of Ace Frehley's guitar solos. So yeah, Separate, definitely check that song out if you haven't heard it in a while. And that and Insane and Juvenile Delinquent, those three tracks alone make this better than anything prior to this on my Ace-orama. So better than I remembered it, but could have been much, much better if Ace was more involved in it. I will also recommend the version I got was a remastered version that also came with the Live Plus EP, which was released prior to this. And that's actually a live EP in which they were supporting the first Frehley Comet album. And it has one extra studio track, which is a catchy little pop song. Words Are Not Enough. That's a catchy little song, kind of a cheesy little synthy 80s pop rock song. But Ace always did have this melodic side. And his voice, his kind of scrappy, not trying too hard voice adds to songs like this. Like it gives it a little bit of an edge. Number 5. This is an album I was initially disappointed in when it came out. Spaceman. Yeah, when Spaceman came out, I told a lot of people online that I did not like it. However, a couple weeks later, the more I listened to it, it grew on me. It grew on me back then, and it's stuck. Like I was listening to this, and this was one of the albums I enjoyed the most. I think this is a good album. Wouldn't say great, but it has some great songs. But this is a solid album, a solid follow-up to Space Invader. You know, this is the Ace I like. The Ace that's like, he's just like a scrappy hard rock guy. Flirts a little bit with metal, but ultimately he's a straight down the middle hard rock guy with some power pop leanings, bringing his Ace personality to the table. And you got that throughout this whole album. It had a bit of a Kiss connection, like Origins Volume 1 did. There were 2 songs co-written with Gene Simmons. Yes, With You I'm Nothing and Your Wish Is My Command. Both solid songs. Both solid songs. They definitely have that Kiss vibe. You can definitely hear the Gene Simmons influence in the songwriting. However, they're not 2 of the stronger tracks, so it's not like he needed Gene Simmons' help. So yeah, these 2 songs he co-wrote with Gene Simmons, they're solid tracks. They're not bad. But the Ace Frehley songs that he wrote with just himself or some other people we don't know are much better songs. Like Rockin' with the Boys, a song I at one time thought was stupid, but then I got intelligent with my stupidity and realized it was awesome. Yes, this is a kind of dumb, fun song that only Ace could pull off. Ace pulls it off. This song's just fun. You just want to rock with the boys. That's what you want to do. You want to go say bye to your lady and go and rock with the boys to the song. It's a lot of fun. I love the production. I love the sound of it. And Ace just, he just sells it. But then some songs are actually legitimately, objectively great songs. Like Bronx Boy. Bronx Boy is just a great song. It's awesome. Bronx Boy is my favorite Ace Frehley song post a song I really love on Trouble Walkin'. All right, so it's the best song since then. And it's strong. It's as strong as anything he wrote in Kiss. And this is like the street Ace Frehley. This is the guy who wrote Hard Times. One of my favorite Kiss songs, Hard Times from Dynasty. Yeah, this is like the other side of Hard Times. Bronx Boy, Ace Frehley from the Bronx. And he was like a street kid. He was like in gangs and stuff. And it comes through. I love it. Pursuit of Rock and Roll. I like that song too. You know, he's being loud and proud. He's a rock and roll traditionalist. That's the kind of music he likes. He name checks all the classic rock and roll artists he loves, and it's a lot of fun. I like it. I like the Eddie Money cover. I want to go back. This is something Ace has been doing since the '78 solo album, where he takes a pop song, but then does a slightly more rocked out version or groovier version of the original. And I like it. Mission to Mars, great heavy rocker, real fast up tempo song. I like that song a lot. Off My Back's a little catchy number. I dig that too. Quantum Flux, decent enough instrumental. It's not great, but it's good. Spaceman. If you like his other stuff, if you love Space Invader, you'll like Spaceman. So there, that's my recommendation. It's a decent follow up, and this would have been like a better album to end with, in my opinion, than 10,000 Volts. But what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Next is an album I mentioned briefly in the last entry. Number 4, Trouble Walkin'. Trouble Walkin'. This seems to be a fan favorite. A lot of Ace Frehley fans do like this album, and obviously I like it. It broke the top 5. Number 4. I like this. I think it's slightly overrated by some people, but I do like it. This was kind of Ace's return to being kind of more straight up. Like no more of that hair metal, glam metal kind of flirtation or AOR, 80s action montage music. Like this was more just straightforward hard rock again. Music was going in this direction, post Guns N' Roses. And we were right on like the eve of grunge. This is 1989. So like, yeah, Ace kind of being hip to things. He kind of saw the writing on the wall. So this is a little more of a return to like kind of 70s style rock, but with like a slicker late 80s production. And it's a really good album. It's a solid hard rock album. Very catchy. A few little power pop moments. A shot full of rock. Great song. Great opening track. Love that. Do Ya? An Electric Light Orchestra song. An ELO song. I like ELO. I'm an ELO fan. And I love the original. I think Do Ya is a great ELO song. That being said, I think Ace's version's even better. The song rocks more. I think it's actually more melodic. He really leans into the pop melody of this one. You could tell like he thought this was going to be a big hit. That didn't really happen, but it should have happened. This was really, really catchy. This was really catchy. I bet you if the singer wasn't Ace Frehley, but he was some pretty boy that looked like John Bon Jovi, this probably would have been a big hit in 1989 on MTV. But women are superficial and only like music if it's recorded by good-looking people. So unfortunately, that takes down half his demographic. I'd say, Ace, kind of, maybe? I don't know. I'm a straight dude. I don't know. You tell me, ladies and gay people, tell me if Ace is cute. All I'm saying is maybe he's not that cute because he could not sell Do Ya on MTV in 1989, despite the melodic richness and great production. And that sounds like a hit song. Sounds like a hit song to me. So I figure it's got to be something. Okay, next track. 5 Card Stud, my favorite song on the album. This is a song I was alluding to earlier. This song is amazing. One of my favorite Ace Frehley songs. A hidden gem. A nice hard rocker, real dark, meaty kind of hard rocker. It's great as anything on the '78 solo album. I love that song. Hide Your Heart. Yeah, that song that Paul Stanley wrote with Desmond Child and a woman named Holly Knight. Obviously, there was some weird competitive thing going on where Ace Frehley decided to do the song too. And you know what? All versions of this song are not good, including the Ace Frehley one. It's not that good. So that takes the album down a little bit. Yeah, in theory, this could have been a little bit better facing in it because he had a little more of that street smart New York vibe that could have added something to it. But it just sounds too much like the Kiss version. And, well, yeah, not that good. But then we got Lost in Limbo, second best song on the album. Love it. Good hard rocking track. Really good. Trouble Walkin', all right tune, all right rock and roll song. Not great, but good. Gets the job done. Too Young to Die, which he had, I think his bassist sang this one. Not bad, not a bad voice. Yeah, and it was cool. It's rocking. Back to School. Kind of lame. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Back to School. Maybe they recorded it for that movie Back to School, but didn't make the cut. I don't know, but it does take this album down a little bit. Remember Me, which is like this live blues jam. Ace doing some blues. Not bad, actually. Not bad. I actually like it. Good guitar work. I dig it. And Fractured 3. This is the third entry of the Fractured Mirror trilogy, and this is my second favorite of the Fractures. This is actually really good. It's very cinematic, sounds like it could be used in a movie like the first Fractured Mirror, and it's a good way to end this album. And for the most part, this is a pretty solid album. There's only like 2 songs on it that I don't really like, and there's a couple songs like Lost in Limbo and 5 Card Stud, which are great. So I definitely recommend this album if you are getting into Ace Frehley. Next, we got, now this is the upset. there's an upset here. Yes, for many, many years, I said this album was my second favorite solo Ace Frehley album. And I still love it. It's awesome. This is a great album. Now we're getting into great albums. All right. We got 3 great albums from Mr. Ace Frehley. We're past the bad albums. We're past the average albums with a couple good tracks. And we're past good, solid albums. Now we are getting into great albums. But there was an upset. Yes, there was an album I decided was even better than this, and I decided that this weekend. This is hot off the presses, hot off the sad, grieving presses. Number 3 is Frehley's Comet. Yeah, Frehley's Comet, the first Frehley's Comet album. There wasn't too many, there was 2 in an EP, but this was the first one from 1987, and I love this album. I can't believe that this other album I love even more, but I do. I listened to it a couple more times too, just to make sure. But yeah, no, this is now locked in as my 3rd favorite Ace Frehley solo release. He brings in Anton Fig, the great Anton Fig, who plays on the '78 solo album and played on a couple Kiss albums, uncredited, including Dynasty. Great drummer, always love his drumming. And Eddie Kramer, the great Eddie Kramer, the best Kiss producer ever, and also the producer of the '78 solo album. More on that when I talk about that album, but he comes back too. So this is like a real reunion. You got Ace Frehley, you got Anton Fig, and you got Eddie Kramer. So this is definitely a continuation of that '78 solo album, but it's the mid-'80s now, so obviously it has to have a little more of a current metal and hard rock sound. Like I said before, I don't think Frehley's Comet, even less so here, really sound like hair metal to me. For the most part, it just sounds like a combination of Ace Frehley style hard rock and power pop with Todd Hogwoff's brand of like AOR motivational pop rock. But here, that's augmented more of Ace Frehley's songwriting contributions. And you got stuff like, for example, the second song, Breakout, amazing song, one of the best Ace Frehley songs. Todd Hogwoff does sing lead vocals, but this is Ace Frehley's song. He actually co-wrote an earlier version of this with Eric Carr during the Elder sessions. So this is like Ace Frehley through and through, and it's a great hard rockin' track. But of course, the real star of the show is the opening track, Rock Soldiers. This is an anthem, one of Ace Frehley's greatest songs. Yeah, some people might hear this and think it's a total cheese fest, a total mid-'80s rock anthem cheese fest, but this does not sound generic. Unlike the Hogwoff Sam Bush brand of AOR cheese rock, this has that Ace Frehley idiosyncratic touch. It has that idiosyncratic touch. It's just a little more self-aware, a little wittier, a little campier, and a little more just straight up ballsy too, all rolled up into one. To me, it's closer to kind of like AC/DC doing like For Those About to Rock, We Salute You, or Def Leppard, Rock of Ages. It's like more on that level of a rock anthem, and there's nothing generic about it. It has a very distinct Ace Frehley quality. It sounds like Ace Frehley, yeah, in the mid-'80s, but Ace Frehley nonetheless. It's a classic. It was a great reintroduction, like, hey, I'm back, and he leaned into that. He creates a myth. Be true to the myth you make of yourself. That's something Ace Frehley always lived by. It's an awesome song. And then it goes into Breakout. I mean, come on, that's a great 1-2 punch. There was a 1-2-3 punch, because Into the Night is also great. Another pop cover that Ace makes better than the original. Russ Ballard did the original. I heard his original. It was all right. Not nearly as good as this version. Ace really knows how to do a cover. He really makes them his own, and he really leans into the melody and hooks, and I'm surprised this wasn't a big hit. Again, was Ace not good looking enough for you ladies? Because this sounds like it should be a hit song. I don't know, I just feel like if John Bon Jovi or Bret Michaels or Vince Neil were singing this song, I feel like it'd be a hit. But what? Because Ace looks vaguely Asian? Are women superficial and racist? Could be. That just might be a hot take. I don't know. I just know that Into the Night might prove that most women, not all of them. I know you, Brenda. I know you're not in this group. You're cool. But a lot of women might be superficial and racist because they did not make Into the Night a hit song. That's all I'm saying. There might be some toxicity there. We might have to look into that. Maybe they could create a new branch of study in a university somewhere to study the racist, superficial toxicity of women in the 80s and how they selected which songs were hit songs and which songs weren't hit songs based on how good looking or how white the artist looked singing the song. Okay, moving on. Something Moved. All right song, one of the better of these hogwash kind of generic songs, but not great. We Got Your Rock. I love it. We got your rock right here, baby. Very New York attitude, kind of foreshadows Rockin' with the Boys. I love it. Love Me Right. It's all right. Calling to You. This is a real cheesy song. Dolls. I know some people don't like Dolls. The great Ralph Vieira does not like this song. I get why someone might not like Dolls, but I actually like it. No, it's not one of the best songs on the album, but it's not one of the worst. It has a quirky charm to it. It's very Ace. It's very Ace. It's a quirky little weird pop song about how he likes playing with dolls. Yeah, so, I dig it. But then we get to Stranger in a Strange Land. That is my third favorite track on the album. I love Stranger in a Strange Land. Damn, is that a great song. Just Stranger in a Strange Land. And then with the guitar, I mean, God, that Ace Frehley just knocks out these hooks effortlessly. Effortlessly. Paul Stanley would need to be sitting down in a room with Desmond Child for like a week to come up with something half this catchy. Yeah, Ace just knocks it out. There you go. Take the Ace in your face, Paul. Yeah, Stranger in a Strange Land. It's awesome. Then we got Fractured 2, which was the sequel to Fractured Mirror. It's all right. It's not bad. It's not as good as the first one, not as good as the third one, but I'm not kicking it out bad. It's not a bad way to wrap up the album. So there you go. Overall, Frehley's Comet is a great mid-80s hard rock album for super studs. But I decided that this other album is even more super stud worthy. And this is the big upset. Now, my second favorite Ace Frehley album is Space Invader. Yes, there you go, Space Invader from 2014. What a baller move to record your second best album when you're an old man in the mid-teens. This album is just relentlessly catchy. Yes, and he produced it all by himself. In fact, this is the most Ace has stepped up to do an album since the 78 solo album, where he played a lot of the instruments. Well, on this album, he plays a lot of the instruments. He's playing guitar, bass, he's producing the whole thing, doing cool experimental stuff. You could tell he just really threw himself into this. This is the peak of the third phase of Ace Frehley's career, what I'm calling the third phase. This is definitely the peak. It did well, relatively well as albums can sell these days. Actually broke the top 10, yeah. And with good reason. This is a great album. I love every track on it. There's one. One cover is just all right. Everything else I love. Space Invader, the title track. God, you hear this? It's just instantly pure Ace. Not just because he's playing into the Spaceman persona and all that in the lyrics, but just that mixture, this kind of seamless, organic mixture of spacey metal and catchy hard rock. It's like ear candy. This whole album is like ear candy. And that's one of the things it has in common with the 78 solo album. It's just top to bottom ear candy. Every song sounds really like a single. Second song, Give Me a Feeling. God, so catchy. I think this was the single from the album. Such a catchy song. This is, like I said, where he's like borderline hard rock and power pop. Like the song suggests, it just has a good feeling. You listen to Give Me a Feeling. Even when I was down, that's the thing, I was down. And I was sad about Ace's passing. And then I listened to Give Me a Feeling, and it lifted me up. It lifted me up like Ace is still alive, coming out of my speakers. His feeling, his essence, his rock and roll spirit is coming through the speakers. And it made me feel great. I love it. I Want to Hold You. This is like Beatles level catchiness. The little licks he's doing, and it's just like catchiness on top of catchiness on top of catchiness. This is real rock and roll. Only 3 minutes and 32 seconds, just like the Beatles did. Ace knows how to write it. Just a little snappy, catchy song. Change. This shows you that he learned from his mistakes on Anomaly. Change is a song that's about how he's changed and how he needs to change after many years of being decadent and doing drugs and drinking too much and all that. This is a kind of, hey, I'm making myself better kind of song, but it's not as heavy-handed or as corny as those touchy-feely songs in Anomaly. In fact, it's kind of a dark song. It has a dark meatiness to it. It's got a lot of depth to it. It's got a lot of mood. I love it. Toys is a cool, not like Dolls. It's kind of a different kind of song. It's a little more kind of a 70s rock kind of song. I dig it. Immortal Pleasures. Now, that's another kind of song that he might have wrote on Anomaly, but writes it better here. You could tell he's like learning. This song is a nice trippy kind of vaguely proggish for Ace, almost a little psychedelic. It's really catchy. Again, you're going to hear the word catchy come out of my mouth several times. It's just a really catchy song and very memorable. All these songs stick in your head and you remember them. Inside the Vortex, great rocker, good heavy song. Ace is like a master of mood here, slipping from melodic psychedelic rock ballads to punchy heavy metal. Doesn't miss a step. Past the Milky Way, another kind of spacey, vaguely psychedelic 70s style rock song. Reckless, love Reckless, one of my favorite songs on the album. Another great example of Ace's songwriting prowess. During the verses is like power pop and really catchy, and then shifts over to something a little more heavy metal in the chorus without ever missing a beat. It's just like the song's seamless. It's reckless and seamless. It's just so catchy. I think this could have been a single too if it wasn't. I really love that song. And then you got to cover the Steve Miller Band song, The Joker. I was never a big fan of this song. So kind of like a couple of those songs on Origins. It's not so much the performance of the song. It's just that I'm not so hot on the song. It makes sense for Ace, like, the plumber and creator of Spaceman. And the Joker's a perfect song for him. I guess I like this better than the Steve Miller one, so it's a little bit better. And it doesn't take down the album. It's an all right second to last track, so it doesn't spoil the album for me, but it would be my least favorite song. But the fact that my least favorite song on the album is the one cover just shows you how great of a songwriter Ace Frehley is. And then finally, there's the instrumental Starship. It's a cool instrumental, and I'm glad that he kind of let go of the trying to make Fractured Mirror sequels because, he was never really going to top the original, even though I do really like that third one. Yeah, it's not bad instrumental, fun way to end the album, and such great guitar work. Great guitar work throughout. God, Ace Frehley, such a great guitarist. Great guitarist, great personality, cool voice, great songwriter, great producer. This was a well-produced album. The best thing he did, in my opinion, after the 78 solo album. Okay, and now we're getting to the big one. And I've already reviewed this album, but out of respect to Ace Frehley, I will review it one more time. Yes, Ace Frehley. The album's actually called Ace Frehley, aka the 78 solo album. That's what most people call it, the 78 solo album. I'm not going to give you the whole history because if you're watching this Ace Frehley video, you know all about the solo albums that came out in 78. And I discussed it in my Kiss ranking video. I didn't call it a rankorama. It was before I was calling them rankoramas, but I did a Kiss ranking video. It's one of my more popular videos. I included the 78 solo albums in the ranking. Believe I ranked this number 4. Yes, I ranked it as my 4th favorite Kiss album. I think I did say that objectively there was a case that this was the best one, but at that time when I did the ranking, I said that there were 3 Kiss albums that I listened to and loved a little bit more, and they were Dressed to Kill, this one Hotter Than Hell, and Rock and Roll Over, which I said is my favorite, which is Rock and Roll Over is my favorite Kiss album. I don't know. There's still part of me that can't quite say Ace Frehley is my favorite Kiss album. Objectively, this is the best album ever with a Kiss logo on it. All right. I can hear that the musicianship's better. I can hear the songs are more consistently catchy and interesting than on any Kiss album. The production, Eddie Kramer's, well, that's the one thing. It's probably the second best Eddie Kramer production. I still think Rock and Roll Over, that sound, the sound of the guitars on Rock and Roll Over, that's the greatest thing Eddie Kramer ever did, in my opinion. I can hear the songs are actually better on this. Yeah, this is what I'm getting at. Ace Frehley, the songs are better than the songs on Rock and Roll Over. But Rock and Roll Over just has that production and vibe and sound. I can't say this is better than that. I might be able to say it's better than Hotter Than Hell and Dressed to Kill. I think I'm coming around to that. So if I did that rankorama now, I'd probably make this the second best Kiss album. But objectively, there's a case that this is the best. I'm torn. Sometimes I think Dynasty's up there. That was my 5th favorite. Dynasty's great. I mean, Kiss did a lot of great stuff in the 70s. I'm a huge fan of Kiss's 70s output. And Ace was a big part of that with his solos. Like, he doesn't even have a song on Rock and Roll Over, but he's all over that album in terms of his guitar playing. His very melodic and memorable solos that helped enhance the song. Think of something like Calling Dr. Love. So that album I still consider Rock and Roll Over, even despite not having an Ace written song, I still think is very Ace coded as a guitarist and with Eddie Kramer. And that's obviously where those guys connected. As a producer and guitarist, they connected. And it says a lot for Ace Frehley that he was smart enough to take Eddie Kramer for his solo album, whereas the other Kiss cats didn't. Eddie Kramer, who was an engineer for Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin, both of which Jimi Hendrix and Jimmy Page were guitar heroes of Ace. So working with Eddie Kramer, obviously these guys, they clicked. Also, Ace is smart enough to take Anton Fig. By the late 70s, Peter Criss could not really play anymore on the Kiss albums. He was too far gone with cocaine and sticking guns in his mouth, so he couldn't do it anymore. And Anton Fig was the session player that came in and did drums. He did Dynasty almost all the drum parts, I believe, on Dynasty, except for Dirty Living, which I think is Peter Criss. But before Dynasty, before he did his great drum work on Dynasty, Ace Frehley wisely takes this very talented drummer and this very talented producer, and then he more or less does almost all the other parts himself. He sometimes divided bass duties, but he plays all the guitar parts, and you could tell Ace really threw himself into this, like he would with Space Invader many, many years later. He really threw himself into this, and obviously at this point he'd had probably a certain amount of songs built up that weren't used in Kiss. Easily the best Kiss solo album. I know Ian and Eric, I know you guys are part of the Paul Stanley solo albums, the best club, and that's fine. If Paul's your guy, that makes sense. Yeah, that would be your favorite. But to me, because I'm more of an Ace guy, this is clearly the best of the solo albums. And hell, I think it's better than most Kiss albums, if not all of them. It's just top to bottom, great song after great song, a perfect blend of ballsy hard rock and melodic power pop. Rip It Out, that's a classic, and that's the kind of Ace I want to hear. I don't want to hear happy, oh, I love this lady so much, she's making my life better. No, I want to hear a pissed off Ace Frehley singing about how this chick ripped his heart out and he wants to get back at her. Yeah, that's rock and roll. Rip It Out. It's great. Speeding Back to My Baby. Really catchy. What a great tonal shift. And he does it effortlessly. He can have such a heavy and vicious song like Rip It Out that has a lot of bite to it, but still catchy at the same time. And it goes into Speeding Back to My Baby. I guess it's the catchiness is the thing that links it. But Speeding Back to My Baby is like straight up almost like a Beach Boys song. It's just so catchy, fun, old school rock and roll kind of song. I love it. Snowblind. This song is amazing. Dark, kind of Sabbathy, even though it's not the Sabbath song. It's a little Sabbathy though, but even kind of modern sounding for the time, for 78. It has a little bit of an 80s sound to it in terms of its production. It's kind of futuristic in a way, and it's dark and meaty, and musically this is so much more like Ace was really being kind of held back in Kiss. You know, you could hear that musically, him and Anton, they're just like stretching out. They're stretching out, and it's far more musical and has a looseness at the same time and a complexity musically while still staying focused on hooks and melody. Like Ace is still a hooks and melody, straightforward songwriter, but he's just throwing in a few little cool licks here and a little bridge there and just little things that you would not hear on a Kiss song. Ozone, another example. Like this is a song a little progressive for Kiss. They wouldn't do a song quite like this. But here Ace does this kind of trippy, psychedelic rock song, but yet kind of grungy, very proto-grunge, like some of the best Kiss stuff in the mid-70s. Ozone, amazing song. Actually, my favorite song on the album. So there you go. I love Ozone. One of my favorite Ace Frehley songs ever. It's just, he's the kind of guy who likes to get high. Badass song. This song sounds like if they released it in the 90s and it was some handsome guy in a flannel singing it, it'd probably be a hit. What's Your Mind? This is a song I've heard a few people say they don't like. They think it's a little corny. I love it. I disagree. I think this is top shelf power pop. Yeah, this is like Cheap Trick level power pop in my opinion. This is so infectious. That chorus and the way he shifts from hard rock to power pop without missing a beat, a snappy little jam. This should have been a single. I think this could have been a hit after the next song, New York Groove, a great cover, one of the great covers of all time. Yes, this was the hit on the album, the biggest song to come out of the Kiss solo albums, which for the most part were a big commercial bust. But thank God for Ace Frehley. Thank God, Ace Frehley, the man who saved Kiss in 1978. New York Groove, yes, the most popular song that anybody in Kiss did in 1978. New York Groove, a cover of the band Hello. Yeah, you know them? No, of course you don't know them, because they're not as good as Ace Frehley. It's a catchy enough song. I heard their version. It's all right, but it's not nearly as good as the Ace Frehley version. He's the one that really sells the song. He has all that New York swagger, and yeah, it makes you feel like you're just strolling down 1970s Times Square, and it's gonna be a crazy evening. You might get into some trouble, but it's gonna be fun. He's got a fistful of dollars in his hand. It's such a great jivey song. It's a pop rock classic, and it's the Ace Frehley version that's the classic. I love it. And it just shows the diversity that he could do a song like this. Think about this. New York Groove is on the same album as Snowblind. Those songs couldn't be more different, but yet he pulls it off just like the Beatles did, just like the Stones did, just like Zeppelin did. Ace Frehley is pulling off major tonal shifts and you wouldn't even know it. Like a super stud. I'm in Need of Love, a great song that's kind of almost Van Halen-esque, and this is 78, the same year as the first Van Halen album. So he's like right on the forefront. Like that guitar work that he's doing, amazing, modern for its time guitar work, and the way his vocals wrap around that serpentine, cool, modernist guitar lick. Amazing stuff. Amazing song. I love this song. And then the way it kind of rocks out and has like Ace Frehley style jam. Again, Kiss would never do stuff like this. They would never do something quite this musical. And I'm a Kiss fan. I'm a Kiss fan, and I think they're underrated musically. But still, they're not playing stuff on this level. God damn it. I guess this is probably the best Kiss album ever. Wiped Out, a really fun song. Totally leans into the Joker, Ace Frehley personality. And it gets heavy, dude. That's another thing. Think of the tonal shifts in this song. It's kind of silly and campy and fun during the verses. But then when it gets into that Wiped Out chorus, that's like heavy. That's like really heavy. That's a proto-grunge type shit. And again, sleight of hand, amazing production, amazing melodies, amazing hooks. And then, of course, you have Fractured Mirror, which is a great instrumental. It's a classic. It is the greatest Ace Frehley instrumental, in my opinion. Very kind of simple song. It's just all about mood and atmosphere. It just has this haunting guitar riff, and then all these other sounds come into it. You could kind of hear how stuff like this would influence songs like Orion from Metallica. Like the way it just kind of shifts and takes you somewhere, and it's very cinematic. It's a song that I listened to a lot after finding out about Ace's passing, and it definitely was a song that moved me, and just thinking about now, I'm getting a little choked up. Ace was a really underrated talent. And yes, he had his issues. He could be lazy at times. He could be self-destructive at times. He did not fully max out his talent throughout his career. But in these occasional shining moments, these little moments like a Frehley's Comet or Space Invader, and especially the 78 solo album, you could see when Ace really stepped up to the plate that he was on another level. He was on another level, in my opinion. Yeah, maybe he wasn't the best singer in Kiss, but he had a cool voice, and he knew his limitations and he knew his strengths. He knew his guitar playing was top notch, and he knew his singing was just enough to get the job done, but do it with personality, do it with swagger. And he knew what kind of music he did well. He knew that he was great doing a mixture of metal, hard rock, and power pop. But in that range of music, he always found little interesting things to do and took a few interesting turns or unexpected shifts, or do pop covers and do them in his own unique way. And I think he's a great artist. So this was my Ace-orama, my tribute to the great Ace Frehley, to the great Spaceman. I'm Eddie Canestracci, and I'm out of here.